And I wrote to him saying, we put out an inquiry to the board members first thing this morning. 3 responded. They are all strongly in favor of having the moratorium. It appears that I stand by myself. I signed it. I did not want this board thinking that I spoke on behalf of this board, contrary to what this board had previously agreed. It was solely my own opinion, and I did not express it otherwise. Okay.
You sent a message out this morning, Joe?
Did I?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I thought that's what you just said.
No, it was
No.
a couple weeks ago.
No. This was before the moratorium.
Since we have that subject on the table, I might as well speak up and tell you what I think. I think the town missed a golden opportunity to put the moratorium in place because there are so many issues beyond just the environmental issues. The pilot agreement, I could speak for a while, but I just think it puts us at a disadvantage, unfortunately, and we're just gonna have to deal with it because where we're at is where we're at. But that's my thought.
Well, I guess the moratorium did not affect the ones that we had started with the approval process. So,
No. No, so we need to move forward with those that are in the hopper, and we are going to continue now. So the first item on the agenda is the application by CVE North America. This is an application for subdivision, site plan, and special use permit for a solar array on Do Good Road. We previously opened a hearing, and that hearing was continued. And at this time, we should continue with that hearing and complete that matter.
Do we need to open it or is it already
I
open?
think it's already open.
Okay.
So we would continue at this time in the event anyone wanted to speak again, speak relative to that particular solar array, Do Good Road. Ernie?
Carson,
Yes, hello.
hi. On page 9 of your environmental assessment form,
Yeah.
you give us a chart of the land uses. And 2 of the things came to mind. One is planning to take 12.6 acres of forested land and use that for solar array. One of the purposes of renewable energy is to decarbonize the planet. One of the best methods of decarbonizing available to us today are the trees. You're going to take down 12.5 acres of trees. Strikes me as doing it bass backwards. That's the first thing. The second thing is a few lines down, you're going to take out 66 acres of farmland. And in your EAF, it asks you if you're going to take out any desirable farmland, and you say yes, 66 acres worth. So my question to both of those is, are there other ways in that 244 acres to find something less valuable, either as trees or as farmland than you're presently using? Or could you just make the whole thing a little bit smaller?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the comment. So the only 2 uses currently on site are forest and farmland. To address your first point directly, yeah, it's unfortunate to have to clear trees in some scenarios to install a solar facility, but if you think about the environmental benefits on a macro level, you look at the impacts on a carbon basis, the amount of carbon being removed from the grid, it's equivalent to planting. So removing 1 tree is equivalent to planting about 65 trees when you replace it with a solar facility. So that's the major benefit of these solar facilities. That's why this policy was passed at a state level to get this clean energy out there and on a whole over the long term across the entire state, end up better environmentally.
How about the farmland?
Yeah. So this facility is temporary and it's a very low impact use of the land. So there's no impervious surface. We have a grass covered access road. The only real disturbance into the land are piles driven in. Underneath that will be a meadow of grasses and flowers. we'll have a decommissioning bond with the town. And then at the end of its useful life, usually in about 35 years, we can remove the panels, remove all the equipment, and you can go back, restore the land, you can go back to farming it.
Trying to come up with an assessment of the value of the project.
Yeah.
Using the new discounted cash flows method that has been implemented by the state of New York. We came up with a range between $4,600,000 and $5 million. That would suggest an annual payment in the neighborhood of $333,000 to $360,000 a year. The present pilot maximum is about $58,000 a year. Seems to us to be a little bit unfair in terms of what's possible and what's offered. So our hope was that we might find some better way perhaps to negotiate directly with you, either a better pilot agreement or to opt out altogether and assess the property on a full value using this new discounted cash flow method.
Sure. Yeah, no, I understand. I know what you're talking about. The Department of Taxation released a draft model for their new renewable energy property tax standardization that they're looking to implement state level, and it could in theory replace the need for a pilot, either directly with the AHJs, the agencies, or through the IDA. It's aiming to provide a methodology for the local tax assessors to assess and provide a valuation for these projects. Yeah, the draft model that they provided was very rich. It valued these projects a little too high in our opinion. It left us with a tax burden that is not sustainable, not feasible. I know they are receiving comments at this time, questions and comments, and their final model and their final methodology for this assessment will be put into place in early 2022. So they're working through that. Hopefully, the solar industry will see those valuations come down. But I think another thing to consider there is that the value of the system would amortize over the useful life, potentially over 25 years. So one project may start at a value of $5 million in year one, but each year would decrease in value and the tax burden would decrease.
Except that the discounted cash flows, assume the cash flows are staying steady. It seems to me that historically, I don't know how many of you've seen it, but I can't remember the last time our electrical bill went down. So that suggests that
Right.
the utility is constantly raising the price.
Mhm.
Does that also mean that they're going to be raising the price that they give you? Doesn't that go up too?
Yeah, so about 50% of the rate that we receive for this energy is floating with energy prices. So we do very gradually increase our rates, our price per kilowatt hour as energy prices increase.
Okay.
But we would have one less year of useful life. We would have one less year of production. So it's a 25-year contract term. It would be assessed at $5 million in year one based on 25 years of revenue. But you move to year two, then it's being assessed on 24 years of revenue.
Okay.
So that's the big impact to the valuation of this. In year 15, the project's worth much less than in year one, because you only have maybe 10 years of revenue instead of 25.
I know you have more questions. I just want to jump in because
I can use a breather.
I want to, what?
Go ahead.
But I want to clarify something, at least in my mind, for us to consider. And one of the big impacts that we have to deal with, and you're touching on this, is that we have been kind of flying blind in the past when we approve these projects. And I think what we should incorporate with these special use permits is to have an understanding of what is the benefit to the town. And whether it's a pilot agreement, whether it's real estate taxes, whether it's whatever, we should understand what the benefit the town is before we approve these things. We haven't done that in the past. And I think, Arnie, you're nailing it right now, that these are things that should be discussed prior to approval of the project, not after the approval. So I want to just throw that out to give us something to think about as we move forward with the projects that are before us.
That's a good one.
When you made this deal in the first place,
Mhm.
you had approved to CVE that this was worth doing. In order to do that, you had to generate 25 years of discounted cash flows. I'd like to see those. That would give us, the one thing that's missing in this damn model is they
Sure.
give us a model number. I don't know if that's legitimate. It's just a model. So that's what I've been using to plug in these numbers.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the comments we've been sending to the New York State Department of Tax have not been responded to.
Yeah.
I've sent 3 of those already and I've not gotten a single response.
Yep.
So I'm
Neither.
concerned that even though the assessors have been included in the discussion of how to do this, I'm not sure they've been listened to.
Yeah, we can put together a pro forma cash flow.
I'd love to see that.
yeah,
That would be
it's-
helpful, because I think somewhere between what OCEDA is offering and what the potential is for taking this whole thing to an accessible level, there's probably some area that we could both live with. I'd
Right.
like to find that area before I say yes.
Understood. Yeah, full visibility. That's what you were looking to accomplish with the moratorium. Going back to Rich's point, we have a project in the town of Wheatfield by Buffalo. We were exempt from a moratorium that they passed. And part of that exemption was to execute a host community agreement with the town. Where the town gets more direct benefits, they get more tax revenue. And they made that host community agreement conditional to the special use permit. So they awarded the special use permit, made the host community agreement conditional. So,
I think that's critical.
yeah,
I really do, because in the past, we've approved these based on the knowledge we had at the time. We have a little bit more knowledge now. And I think we would be foolish not to do something
Yeah.
along those
Let me
lines.
just be clear, the planning board did not negotiate the terms of the host community agreement. That's between the town attorney and the town board. All the condition was that the planning board said that you must enter into a host community agreement.
Right.
The economics of that transaction were rested with the town board and the town attorney and outside of the purview. So again, I don't know who's gonna negotiate the host community agreement between the town and CVE in this instance, if there is gonna be one or a pilot or whatever it is, but we can't certainly negotiate that in front of 2 different boards and 2 different uses,
I'm
right? So Mr. Coltonson, you indicated you want to get into the negotiations of that, you want to understand that. I don't know whether who will negotiate a host community agreement for the town, if it's going to be you or this board. I think then let's have those discussions, but I think like to have those in the proper, with the right people and not have to negotiate in front of multiple parties.
Jared, I completely understand, and I certainly agree with you. What I'm trying to do is bring out in public some of the things that we're learning as we go along. We asked for the 6-month moratorium to learn enough to be able to intelligently do what we're charged with doing, which is proper land use for the town of Manlius. We don't have enough good information to make intelligent decisions that I can feel comfortable with. And I'm just speaking for myself. When I came on the board, I came on with a responsibility to represent the residents of the town of Manlius. I've tried to do that. I'm trying to do that now by understanding what are the long-term consequences of a 25-year deal where we're invited to take what looks like a nice sum of money from OCEDA, but I'm not sure I know what a nice sum of money is on a 25-year contract for 224 acres of prime land. And I sure as hell don't know what it's like to take it for 25 years. So I'm with you on this. I really would like to know what makes sense for everybody involved. That's CVE as well as the town. And I'm not speaking for the town board. I'm not speaking for the planning board. I'm simply saying as a member, I will feel one hell of a lot more comfortable when I know what we're dealing with and how much we're taking away or giving to the town of Manlius. I can tell you that every year, the last several years, the town's assessment has gone up. That's enabled the town taxers to say that we've held the tax rate constant or only raised it by some tiny percentage. I can also tell you that every one of the 14,300 taxpayers in the town of Manlius saw their assessments go up, with the exception of a handful who got them reduced. Most everybody's went up, even though the tax rate did not. In effect, what we're giving is we're giving CVE the benefit of a tax that we would normally have gotten for any other kind of commercial development. I understand that's the price that we are willing to pay for solar to get this renewable fund. I just want to know what's the right amount to pay.
And I think that that's a fair question. I just want it in the right form and in the right context. This is the planning board to review the special use permit and the site plan of the project, not necessarily the economics of the town's pilot agreement or the host community agreement. It's not something that I believe is in your purview respectfully. I think all I'd ask you to do is to look at the code and look at the standards for this and evaluate the project from a land use planning board perspective and allow your question, maybe the condition of this board would be enter into an appropriate host community agreement with the town board again, if you were following the same roadmap as we do. But at the same time, and allow us to go work through that. We have to work within the rules of the state property tax law, just like you do. We have certain lanes we have to stay in and things that we can do. And we're happy to negotiate and work through that process in accordance with law. But we can't come before the planning board and negotiate that settlement or debate the merits of it, because we're only one party to the agreement in the first place. There are at least two other parties, the school district, the county, the town, and or maybe the town supported with the host community agreement, and the state that gives us the lanes that we can play in.
See, I don't disagree with that, what you're saying. I get it. But in my opinion, it would still be useful to know what those details are prior to approval. And you're saying we can't negotiate it, fine. We don't have to negotiate it, but I want to know what it is. What is it that the town is getting out of this? Whether it's the school district, the town board, whoever, OSIDA, just go have your negotiation, come back and tell me what it is.
I appreciate that. But I also asked to be treated with the same respect of every other applicant that comes before the town. If somebody comes in and wants to build a Starbucks or a large shopping plaza, the question, I'm sure, doesn't come before the board about how much you're paying in taxes. Maybe it does. Doesn't seem like this is the proper venue for that.
No, but that's a different example. That assessment will be based on full value assessment. Because we know that the Starbucks will, this is different. This is different.
So when somebody comes in and it's going to be obtain OSIDA or OSIDA benefits, you ask them the same question, or do you prohibit them from getting approval if they're going to get OSIDA benefit?
I think going forward, I'd like to know what that is. We're learning as we go. And this is one of the things about the moratorium.
Just from my client's perspective, I want to be treated with this, if somebody wants to talk to us about the benefits that we may or may not be getting. Doesn't sound like the state taxation plan is particularly favorable to solar facilities. That's not even final yet. It's just comments. You're asking, what are we going to get? What is the economic? I don't think we know. And so for people to stand in judgment of what that is, we know what we hope to get out of the project. I don't know that that's fair to even lay out in public based on what it is. But again, Carson's free to give you the pro formas that we have, but this plan is not helpful to us. It might be helpful. The host community agreement, again, we worked through the school district. We talked to them about pilot agreements. In terms of that, again, with the town, we sat with all of you. We're trying to come up with the rest deal. We don't have it yet.
Would you put together, I'll give you one question because this is something that's very sensitive to me. Would you agree to buy a house, put a contract together and not have a price? We'll agree on that somewhere down the road, but you're forced to buy the house.
Again, I'm saying.
I'm trying to get a handle on that.
I'm saying is I am an applicant for a property owner. I come in and say, I want to build that. I want to build this house. I'm going to build it. Here's the zoning rules. This is the dimensions. It can't cause damage to its neighbors. You can't adversely impact the environment. All the things that you said before I can even consider or I can approve it. I need to know how much you're paying for the, how much you're going to pay in property taxes, and you don't know until the assessor determines what the value is, and you go through that process.
I know you're not paying anything in property taxes. That's my point. With a house or a commercial property or whatever, there's an expectation that it'll be assessed fully, and we'll get a certain amount of revenue. With this, it's zero.
Yeah, how we get assessed, how our property taxes get assessed as a solar
Yeah,
facility.
it's just,
I would just like to offer a different point of view. I have faith in our town board and our town attorney, and we've been talking about this with them in a specific solar group, and I would like to even if we put it in the agreement for the community host agreement, for the special permit for the community host agreement, that we have faith that they will negotiate that. I feel that piece that I want to look at going with the site plan, the screening, and the actual thing. So I just want to say that I have a different view. I'd like to move forward.
Yep. CBE is given the tools, given the revenue of the project and the lanes we have to take care of property tax. We are being very generous. I have a slide on here on property tax. Maybe we can talk about this again, but we are trying our best to make it worthwhile to the town, the county.
Okay. So let's continue with the public hearing. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak relative to this project? Allison, do we have anybody on board otherwise?
I did not see anyone wishing to speak. Are you going to move forward with the presentation?
Yeah, I would like to
Okay.
quickly, if possible.
Just because we had a request to take that down so that they could see all your faces, but other than that, I have no comments online.
I put a few slides together just to refresh our mind on the
And did
project.
you want to do that while the hearing is still open? Okay,
Yeah, I think I'd like to do it right now.
okay, then we will hear from you.
All right, thank you. Do Good Road Solar Farm. Not to do good. So just as a refresher, I want to let me switch slides here. Yeah, to bring us to present day, here's a brief recap of the project timeline. We originally secured site control. So it's not up there yet. Yeah. Yep, so we originally secured site control. It's a snapshot of the timeline of the project. Secured site control, July 31st of 20. Took us a handful of months to get our materials together, originally submitted to the planning board and appeared on the agenda March 8th. We had a handful of meetings there in May and June where we spoke about the 5 megawatt limitation. We spoke about subdividing into 4 parcels. Got the town in contact with NYSERDA, confirmed that this was okay with NYSERDA. And we even went through the law and the filings with the Public Service Commission to confirm that this was in fact okay under the law, what we're proposing. Then we had a brief pause with the solar moratorium. We had a public hearing for that with the town board on June 28th. The town board voted against the moratorium on August 11th. And then we're back in front of the planning board to continue where we left off today on September 13th. 15 megawatt solar system off Do Good Road and East Seneca Turnpike, just west of the high school. 240 acres total. We're disturbing 79 acres. So it's 2 5 megawatt AC systems and one 1.5 megawatt AC system. There's almost no wetlands on site, and it's a community solar project that could benefit up to 2,500 local homes. Here's a color coordinated snapshot of the subdivision. Those are the 4 lots. Lot 1 subdivided off for an existing cell tower. Lot 2 is one of the 5 megawatt systems. Lot 3 is the other 5 megawatt system, and then lot 4 is up on the north. It's the 1.5 megawatt system. There's 2 interconnection points. One on Do Good over here, which we're oriented, that's the northwest corner of the facility. And then there's another one down here by the cell tower on East Seneca Turnpike. About 35,000 panels. The panels will be spaced 16 17 feet apart from each other. And these are trackers, so they face east in the morning, west in the afternoon. They'll be about at noon when they're perfectly flat. They'll be about 5 feet off the ground. These are some photos of the site. Some vacant cornfields. It's naturally screened, surrounded by dense existing vegetation. Although we're impacting 12 acres of trees, it's largely already cleared for us, which is a huge win. It's not near any major roads. The visual impacts from this site is very, very limited. We're also happy to host a site visit with the planning board. This is something we've done on a couple other projects, maybe on a Sunday. We go out and tour the site with the planning board. I don't know how you feel about that, but we'd be happy to put that together just to get a lay of the land. So this is the main benefit of the project, and it's the carbon impacts. It's what I was trying to communicate with Arnie originally in this meeting. So this 15 megawatt solar farm is equivalent to planting 691,000 trees. So it's a massive amount of clean energy. It's displacing brown energy from the grid. It's displacing 33 million pounds of carbon every year. It far outweighs any negative impacts from removing the trees.
Can you just? Yeah. And I'm not an expert at this, so I don't know, but I think a lot of our power is generated by hydro. So where's this 691,000 trees come from?
Yep, so the sources are there at the bottom. This data is coming from the IA and the PA. And be happy to update it to Central New York if I can find the data.
I don't know, I'm just curious, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'd have to know the generation mix, you know, how much is already clean to get more specific to Manlius. But nationally speaking, given data from the EPA and the IA, these are the figures. Here's a slide on the tax revenues. So this screenshot is pulled from the NYSERDA handbook on property tax. Their recommended rates for property tax for solar projects in upstate New York, or per utility, actually. We're a national grid. They recommend $1,700 to $5,100 per megawatt AC. What we have been discussing with the attorneys, with the school district, has been a rate of $5,500 per megawatt AC, already above NYSERDA's recommended range. We've also discussed with the school district to front load their payments, to take their 15 years of expected tax revenue and give it to them up front. That would be $365,000. If you do the math, you add this all up, it's about $800,000 in the first 15 years that this facility would pay in taxes. The lump of it going to the school district and the rest split between the town and the county. And we're happy to move around the funds with the host community agreement, which we could get into more details later. Underneath the facility, like I said, is also grasses and flowers. Once these take, it'll look very similar to this. It's a natural habitat, a biodiversity enhancement for a bunch of species: bees, butterflies, moths, beetles, hummingbirds. It's a very low impact, environmentally friendly use of the land. Community solar, so up to 2,500 individuals or homes could receive monthly discounts on their utility bills. It's a 10% discount on their bill. Estimated to be worth $260,000 in year one. If you add it up over 25 years, about $9.5 million in utility savings for the community. We also have a little bit of flexibility with this. So given the rules of the community solar program, we can send up to 40% of the power to a single off-taker, a single customer. Instead of doing 2,500 homes, we could send 40% to a business in town, an industrial use. So,
Carson,
yeah,
is that $9,500,000 nominal, or discounted that over 25 years too.
That's nominal. Yeah, it's not present day dollars. All up. I'll keep moving. Yep, so these are some of the marketing materials that we would send out. CBE has their own community solar brand, a customer facing brand called Halo. And we do a lot of email marketing, cold calling, flyers in town, post call mailings. And this is an example of some of the materials we can give priority access to Manlius residents. And they can go online and very easily sign up. It's an easy sell once they're
Where are
aware.
these panels manufactured?
Yep, these panels are manufactured in South Korea from a company called Hanwha. Not in China, no forced labor. You know, that came up at one of the meetings. And then finally, something that's unique to CBE is we'll put together a board to come up with a local environmental cost to donate to. So $1 per panel. It's something we do at every CBE project. So we'll be making a $35,000 donation to the local environmental cause or organization. So just wanted to get that out, refresh everybody on the projects. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Karsten.
I was just wondering if you had received my questions.
Over email or
Uh,
in the chat?
They were sent to you. They're for each installation we do, but I had like 12 or 13 questions. You didn't get them.
From Ann Kelly, did you email them to me directly? I'm sorry, I'm not aware. Well,
I'd
15
have to look.
questions.
I'd have to see how that was.
Okay.
It had to do with like how you take care of the grass underneath the units, you know, if they're sprayed.
Yeah,
That type of thing, you know, removing snow from the units. How do
yeah,
you remove the snow? What do you do with it? You know, so those are the type of questions I have, not just for this specific thing, you know, but for the other project we have too.
yeah. So the pollinator-friendly vegetation is very low maintenance. We go out there and mow it twice a year.
Do you spray it?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
Oh.
I'll have to check. The snow, we keep the access road cleared of snow, but we leave the snow on the panels. Just let it melt, and we don't produce very much energy in the winter because of that.
Have to do with batteries?
No batteries, no storage on site.
What about later on? I mean, because when it gets dark and everything, winter months, you can't store it. What do you do with it?
Yeah, there's no storage attached to this facility. So whatever energy we generate during the winter would be sent back into the grid like any other month. And if you know, if there were in year 15, it would, if it made sense to add storage, we would be subject to site plan review, have to come back in front of the town to add that. But right now, it's a ways away from making sense. Those storage batteries are very expensive.
Right. Well, I'm sorry you didn't get the questions, but they're coming to you.
Okay, great.
Arnie had asked a question earlier about getting pro formas, and I'm sure you have to put them together for the banks or whoever's financing the project.
Yes.
Those are what you're talking about. We will get, you'll send off to Arnie or to
Sure. Yeah.
the chairman.
It's
The chairman that,
be happy to do that. It's kilowatt hours generated, electricity generated times the rate of energy.
Yep.
Times the rate per kilowatt hour, that's the revenue. Minus cost of equipment, minus cost of land, minus cost of interconnection, and then minus the ongoing costs of operations and maintenance.
so it's not a net cash flow. You're depreciating the initial costs and dumping that from your revenue.
Yeah, so there's a big upfront cost.
Right.
You know, you're in the hole for a number of years. There are tax benefits that support it somewhat.
And that'll be part of the pro forma showing that you
Yeah.
invested this much, you got this much thrown
Yeah.
tax credits or whatever it was.
Yep.
All right.
So
That
there's a
would be-
26% tax credit from the federal government, and then
Right.
there's a little bit of money via a grant from NYSERDA.
All right, so I think that would be very helpful for us as we look at this thing.
Yeah.
I'll just make another comment because I like making comments. But this to me, from the get-go, has been 3 projects. And I know that all board members don't agree with me, but if New York State recognizes this as 3 projects, that's what you're basing your incentives on, then to me, it's 3 projects. And that creates a little bit of a problem for me in looking at this as it moves forward. Because I don't believe it can be 3 projects and 1 project at the same time. So I'm just telling you up front my thoughts on this. And I have a concern about the way our law is written and having 3 projects on top of each other. But I'm just one vote. What can I say?
There you go.
Well, I have similar concerns because even the way you depict this picture, that looks like 3 projects to me. To me, if it was 1 project, it would all be the same color.
Did we write NYSERDA and
There was a response somewhere. I haven't seen it, but I think, Jamie, you talked to me about it, that we did get something from NYSERDA that said, even though it's 3 projects, we understand what they're trying to do and we're okay with it.
that was an early concern?
But that's NYSERDA. In my opinion, that's NYSERDA. We also have our own town regulations, laws, rules, whatever you want to call it, that we need to abide by. So I'm trying to sort through this thing. On top of that, if I'm not mistaken, this is only 0.6 of a mile away from towns in North Eagle Village. So it's within a mile of another one, and then you add 3 more on top of it. So I was trying to get onto Google Earth to show that, but I did it once before, and it was 0.6 of a mile. So it probably should have been called out a while ago, but it wasn't.
Were you
Yeah, I
able
think
to,
Town code
we had
gives
talked
the-
about this early on. Is it the 0.6 of a mile or is it more than a mile from the prior project? I'm just talking about this as if it
It's
were.
an approved project, it has been built, and
It's under construction today.
So it's a mile. I haven't measured it in 6 months.
I did on Google Earth. It was
Do you know
0.6 of a mile.
the developer, the name of the developer, is it Bulk Renewables?
I think it is.
It is
Yes.
called,
To
yes.
the northeast,
No.
now Novus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't know that this project's here, though, you know, given the existing landscape of the site. You won't be able to see it.
I'm always concerned about setting a precedent. So I
Yeah.
I look at this and look at our code. I'm just telling, and like I said, I'm one vote and I'm expressing my opinion.
It is something we'll need to look at. We will need to make a finding about it if it is under the mile and the finding can be made. It's a recommendation, it is not law. Again, we have to discuss that with respect to precedent.
And it was also explained to us that our capacity we're very close to maximum capacity. So even if it is a mile, we're not going to have a bunch that close together.
And I've heard that argument. People have said that to me, that look, we're getting close. We're talking about facilities that are 25 years in length. And a lot of things can change over 25 years, including capacity. So I had asked that we put a cap on the amount of solar, I mean, a firm cap that is 50 megawatts, 55, whatever it is, as opposed to just saying that we're nearing our capacity, therefore we can't build anymore, because a lot can happen in 25 years. And so I'm concerned about that too.
Carson, I have a presentation on that, on the siting.
Wasn't a pretty big chunk of your connection fee upgrading of that National Grid's ability to handle the 11.5 megawatts? I almost gagged when I saw the cost that it is for you to hook up. And I
Yeah,
was looking at
upgrading
the
feeder.
subsets of it, and it looks like a lot of that is building up their ability to handle it, including taking your 5 megawatts down to 4.6, so you wouldn't overload the system when it was running full tilt. All right.
Yeah, I think the majority of our interconnection costs, which is about $2 million, is upgrading about a mile of power lines. Upgrade to accommodate this.
So just to clarify that, right now, they don't have the capacity to take what you're generating, but with some additional investment, they could, which then creates the question in my mind that the capacity of the system today means nothing. Somebody could always put some money out there and increase capacity.
No, so I have some slides on this that I'm trying to pull up, but yeah, siting, the biggest issue with siting a solar project, a lot of issues, but one of the biggest is interconnection capacity. Where is there capacity available on the power lines? Where is there capacity available at the substation? So these distribution level power lines that are used for community solar projects, they're 13.2 kV. That's their voltage. They can accommodate up to 10, 11, 12 megawatts. And that's if you fully upgrade them to the thickest wire that can fit on those poles at a distribution level. And that's what we're doing here. Okay. And you also have to, that's expensive, but given that you're close enough to the substation, it's feasible. And in this case, it's feasible. You also have to make sure that the transformer, the bank that these power lines feed into, has capacity to accommodate what you're adding. So there's two restrictions. There's one on the feeder. You can only put so much on the feeder, then you can only put so much into the substation. And there's multiple power lines feeding into the same substation. So you have other projects from around the area that could take the capacity on the substation. But the upgrades, no solar developer ever upgrades the substation. That's a $8 million project that takes 2 years of work, 2-3 years of work. It's just not feasible.
All right, thank you.
So here is what I presented to the town board about the siting problem. Out of Manlius solar siting report. And I was trying to prove to them with real data from National Grid, from the interconnection queue, that there's really no space left to do projects in Manlius. There's one spot in the eastern side of town that could do about a 2.5 megawatt AC project. I quoted Rich Rossetti here. But interconnection is no longer viable in Manlius. So those red lines, all these lines are all the feeders, all the power lines, all the distribution level power lines in the town of Manlius. All the red ones are power lines where there's no capacity available. The blue ones are where there is capacity available. There's capacity available on the power lines where it's congested, where it's developed, where the parcels are small, where there's homes and there's shopping centers. You can't get a solar project in there. There's no parcels, there's no space for it. The numbers on these lines are the number of megawatts estimated to be available. So you can see that there's really nothing, where there is land, there's nothing left on the feeders based on what has been applied into the National Grid queue.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but
Yeah.
Does this mean that if we approve your project, the Salt Springs project can't be done because there's not enough capacity?
I don't think so. That's on a different, even though it's close, it's on a different set of infrastructure, right?
Already been through our.
Okay,
Yeah.
so both,
And I think you'll see these are all the power lines in the town of Manlius. Their unique ID with National Grid. The amount of capacity that they could potentially accommodate without upgrades. With that. So we're on this one. We could put 10 megawatts on with no upgrades. We could upgrade a little bit to get to 11.5 to really push it. And then the Source Renewables project is on a different feeder. Feeder 156, CDE is on 553. The Source Renewables project is going into the Collimer substation. We're going into the Do Good substation. So these are on different set of infrastructure. So this shows you, this shows you the total solar on the feeder, the amount that this feeder could accommodate, then stats on the substation. So you see here what's available on the feeder and what's available on the substation. You need both of them to line up to have a viable site. So where there is capacity, there's some that do have some space, like these in blue. But if you were to zoom in on this area where this feeder is, there's no parcels. The land use is restricted.
Carson,
Parcels are
should
small.
you send that to Sarah Ballinger, that's head of this solar working group? Because that would be very helpful for our planning going forward.
Yeah.
She has it already.
Yeah,
You could
send it to the
top, you could put it top.
town board.
Oh, you
So-
did, you did already?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did already, and I went through it with them. So there's a long list of site conditions that need to align to make the site viable and economical. It needs to be large enough. There can't be wetlands. There can't be any crazy topography. There can't be rock outcroppings. It can't be protected. It can't be a park or a reserve or preserve, something like that. It has to fall within the zoning code. Has to be zoned appropriately. It has to be within reasonable distance to power lines that have capacity, that feed into a substation that has capacity. Can't be previously developed. Can't be a 40-acre parcel that's zoned appropriately but is a shopping center. Can't be a school. And then you have to hope that the landowner is interested after all of that at a price that makes sense. So there's far less land available than most people think. I think if you weren't to do anything with our feeder here up Duguid Road, and because of the land use restrictions within a mile, no projects within a mile of each other, I think you'd have an issue where you'd have just open capacity on a feeder that would go unused.
Carson,
I'll stop talking.
I've got a question that came up now as a result of what you've been talking to us about.
Yeah.
If I understood you correctly, you're telling us that there's going to be 79 acres of disturbance. So why would we not conclude that this is a type 1 action?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because I'm meaning that this is a type 1 action requiring additional notifications.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure if the rules, is that under the EAF, the secret process?
Under seeker. So I think there was, I don't know, again, we're learning as we go here about what's disturbance and. Yeah,
I think that gets to the heart of, is this one project or three?
well, either way, it's a 10-acre disturbance that throws it to a type 1.
Maybe not for one of the parcels.
I
don't know.
Acres of that are disturbed.
Disturbance, right.
Because
I don't know,
because this project
Jared,
is
did you
not
want to speak
disturbing
to that?
contiguous areas, you know, it's just got the pile drive, the thing that hold them up. And they're, I don't know what's they are together, but I'll bet you they don't make that many acres.
I'm not sure.
We can work through that, type 1 list, Jamie, if you'd like. I mean, I think it needs to be treated similar to what you would have for housing development. The seeker is about a piece of property is going to be turned into 4 lots. It's a secret determination for that determination because we are asking for the subdivision. So I think it should be treated the same.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that. I guess it was the extent of the disturbance was, I don't think we understood by us, but
I don't know if it's based on the 79.2 acres. The limits of dispersion is, it's a type.
Yeah.
I don't think we've gone through that determination yet.
no,
We've never
no,
got to that.
we haven't gotten there. But I would be, I think we can, to keep that process moving, that we would declare it a type 1 and go ahead and send the notices and
That's fine.
get that going.
I have one last comment, I promise. I won't-
Either way, I don't think it matters. Well, I mean, for purposes of that, we'll treat it as one. Either way, it's gonna be.
This is my last comment. I won't say anything more on this project. And this, again, it's just coming from me as I look at what's happening here. We've got, the public hearing is open right now. We'll probably close it or talk about closing it. But we have a subdivision. That is one of the pieces of the puzzle. If we approve the subdivision, in my opinion, we then need to have 3 separate public hearings on site plans and special use permits for the different projects. Because I'm of the belief there's 3 projects. Others may not agree with me. That's how I look at this thing. So I've been told that we can look at it as one project and do a site plan for all 3. I have never been involved for, I don't know how many years I've been on the planning board. We have never done a site plan on multiple projects at the same time, or multiple parcels, I should say. So I think we should do an individual site plan review of the 3 different parcels, not all together, but individually. And again, that's my opinion. I throw that out there, but I have never seen us do that in the past. I spoke my piece.
I think we're gonna have to really come to, first of all, I would recommend tonight that we do declare this a type 1 action. That for that purpose, I can send out a single notice. It'll involve subdivision, it will involve all projects, whether we end up bifurcating them or whatever we do later. So that would be my first recommendation for tonight. The second thing is there needs to be a discussion amongst this board, because you guys are the only ones who are going to make that determination as to whether this is separate projects. Number 2, if it's, the last thing, if it's determined that they are separate, I feel that if they are one project, that we can look at them all at once, all as one. I don't have a problem with that from a procedural standpoint. Even if they're separate lots, so to speak, separate parcels. And I can work that and work the language. But then the question is this, is it separate projects? And if it is, then we're going to have to make findings about that distance. If it is all one project, it appears we still may need to have a finding about the distance vis-a-vis the other project that's already in process. So those are just basically some threshold considerations. I feel like don't feel like we're back at square one. We certainly are not, but we're not as far along in the process as we would like to be. But it's the nature of this.
So at this point, do we have, Allison, we have more?
Yes,
Okay,
okay. Bill Rosinio says, how much carbon is emitted to manufacture and transport the panels from China? Do you consider that a part of the supply chain? And CPE is installing trackers, but they are showing land-based panels in the presentation.
Yeah. So the carbon to transport the panels was not included in that carbon slide. I don't know how to calculate that. And the panels are trackers, meaning they're mounted into the ground, into the soil, but they track the sun throughout the day from east to west. There's a different type of mount where it's just fixed tilt facing south. It doesn't move. It doesn't move the tracker.
and you've assured us that they're not coming from China.
100%.
Okay,
Seoul, South Korea.
And they're just rotating east to west. They're not going more vertical as the sun goes lower.
That's single axis trackers, meaning rotates only on one axis.
Good.
So be facing the high school in the morning and then facing do good in the afternoon.
thank you. Allison, any others?
There is none.
There being no other public comment, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Fred, second by Rich to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is hereby closed. I would entertain a motion to declare this a type 1 proceeding.
So moved.
Motion by Richard, second by Michael Roy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This is a type 1 action. Jamie, you're responsible for sending out notifications. We had intended to have a brief chat today about special use permits, and it just not to vote on it, but to get an understanding between us. Do we have sufficient time to do that tonight?
Is there anything right now that would prevent that discussion? I mean, I think we've heard a lot.
So I can feel the pressure that NYSERDA is under, and they're very good about sharing it with us. So what they call a recommendation, it's a recommendation with a very heavy. I think Rich is right. I think we shouldn't be doing, I don't think we should be doing lumping things like this for the sake of making it easier and quicker. That's not our job. It's to make it right and something we can all live with. And when they come back, whether 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, and say, what the hell were they thinking? I'll be sitting right next to you saying,
And it's,
right.
and it's, Arnie, it's a precedent. So
Yes,
we're doing something that we've never done before. And what's the next thing down the road? If we do this and look at it as one, what's the next thing down the road that we may not want to look at it as one, but someone's gonna stand up and say, but you did it for him.
So both of you are leaning towards this is 3 projects.
Absolutely.
Other
That's-
members feel,
These 3 projects are gonna be extremely closer than a mile.
Well, that's a problem that I have with it, Fred. I mean, it's, we can't, the applicant can't tell NYSERDA it's 3, so that they can get credits and benefits, and then turn around and say, to us, it's 1. It's either 3 or it's 1. And if it's 1, then tell New York State it's 1. And they'll lose the credits and incentives. But in my mind, I can't say, it's either 3 or it's 1.
The whole reason behind the 1 mile separation was purely visual, wasn't it?
Correct. That's really what it was.
And this project is not visual. You know, it's surrounded by,
But it's also 0.6 of a mile away from another project.
yeah. But the whole idea was to not have the feeling that you were living in a contiguous solar farm all over the town. And this one will never be seen by,
What about the next one?
we'll worry about that one when it comes.
I'm worried about it now. It's just how I.
Well, it seems like that 1 mile is a little arbitrary. I mean, have we codified that already?
It's in the code, and you know what, Fred, over the last few years after we wrote that law, I was thinking maybe it should be 5 miles. And not 1. I do not want to live in a town where I drive down a road and I'm looking at solar farms all over the place. And I know there's certain limits that we can't have them all over because of the grid and the capacity and so on and so forth, but that's today. 25 years, technology changes, things change. I mean, who knows what happens? That's what concerns me.
That's why we wanted a moratorium, so we could.
So that we could sort through. I know. I mean, I would be much more comfortable if I knew more about what the hell's going on. That's my concern. And I didn't, Val, what'd you say? I didn't hear.
No, I was just saying in 25, 50 years, we may have no choice. So if technology
I probably won't be
changes that
here.
way- Well, no, I'm just saying that may be what we have to do, but that's a whole other topic. I'm gonna say that I see it as one project.
You started to say,
Well, since day one, I've seen this as 3 projects. If they had to have 3 applications and they keep depicting it as 3 separate colors on the diagram, to me, that states 3 projects.
What was the reason for having it, for subdividing it into four lots?
It's the state of New York.
As we put it, and I realize we've given you a lot of information, but to have community solar, to be able to use the distribution system, there is a limit of 5 megawatts per project. Again, NYSERDA and the Public Safety Commission, Public Service Commission, excuse me, issued their opinion indicating that this is fully normal. They anticipated this, contemplated this when they adopted the opinion that said you could have multiple 5 megawatt projects on the same site. And I provided that to you. It's right in black and white. They wrote it. And so this is this is not some new and novel concept. That is something that we represent solar all over the state. We've done the same sort of diagram and setup in other projects in the state of New York. I listed the towns where they were, so you can call and check. This is not like crazy. This is what's, again, it's about the size of, in order to get the community solar designation. Although if it was commercial solar, where we were attempting to make large scale commercial utility grade solar, that would be different. But here again, we've got a large parcel that sits up on the hill and over that's not visible. Once you put one 5 megawatt project, that you can put the 2.5, and that's just to say it, you're going to have no greater impact on the community, on the world, etc. But if somebody else can come up with another project that both fits into the grid, works, can use the distribution lines, and isn't visible from the world to see it, I hope that you would approve that project in terms of precedent, because it's more clean energy that doesn't have the impacts that you were worried about. If you don't allow this project, in other words, if you say we're only going to allow a 5 megawatt site because we're worried about precedent, you should be worried about where that project's going on the next to get the do good project substation capacity, because it could go next to somebody's house. This is an ideal location for solar behind the school. They want to participate in it. It's not visible. Once you put it up over that hill, you won't see it. Again, that's why Carson has indicated, you come look at the site and you'll see that this is just a unique site that works from this perspective. And if you're going to have the solar project, why not maximize the energy produced at that location to benefit the facility in a location that's hidden and not seen?
Will these be separate LLCs that own the different parcels? How's the ownership going to be?
Well, to be determined, but
CVE will not
Potentially.
own them directly.
well, there'll be an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, an LLC holding company that CDE owns.
Okay.
and we haven't heard from you.
I'm listening. I'm listening, and I hope that you get those questions for the next meeting.
Definitely.
If these are questions, not only for you, but they're for the next one also. These are general questions. I've lived in the town of Manlius all my life, and these are questions that people have given to me who live here. They have to do with first responders and that type of thing. So I'll be
Will
interested.
Lisa get them to me, or do you want to email them to me
I can
directly?
email them again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You have my email?
Okay,
No, I don't. I'll get it.
Give you my card.
Thanks.
well, it looks like this is going to be a close call as to whether it's going to be determined to be a 1 operation or a 3. I am actually leaning towards 1, that it's 1 hidden unit, and I think economically and visually, because there is no visibility, I'd rather have just 1. But I think we need to vote on this at our next meeting. But at this time, I'd like to move on to special use criteria, and I'd like to hear from the members on what their thought is relative to special use.
So just kind of a reminder of what they are. And this doesn't have to be a final or thorough discussion, more it lets everyone think about it. If you have something you want to throw out, I'm going to, start keeping track of it and So eventually we can come to a conclusion as a group. And as we've done in the past, I'll take comments individually by email. Do not reply all, so that it retains attorney-client privilege. And everyone's not in a discussion by email. We don't want that to happen. And that, we'll put together a draft document as we go along. We do have a little bit of time because we do have to send the notices on the type 1. And there's a few steps to take here. But in the interest of keep moving it forward, I know that Joe wanted to discuss this briefly. So the question is, in the special permit, will the project have an adverse effect on adjacent lands, the immediate neighborhood, or on the character of the community? That's the broad question. And then the sub-question is, and how you get to that conclusion. In this plan, is the community protected from traffic congestion and conflicts, flooding and excessive soil erosion, unnecessary noise, lighting and odors, wasteful energy use, and other forms of pollution? Did anyone want to discuss anything specific about that at this time?
I hate to be a pain about this, Jamie, but which project? What are we talking about?
I'm going to say all the projects. I mean, this is a general discussion that Joe wants to have tonight.
So on both solar projects or all of our projects?
This project that we're talking about right here now, that is either 3 or 1.
And
Okay.
it's all, right? Or just this?
I can't
Just
help
this
but think that this is one project with three operating units in it. One project, though. One company.
No, I get it. I understand. I just have trouble that on the one hand, the state thinks it's 3, even though they can operate, close together like this, but yet it's 1. And it's either 3 or 1. I don't care which one it is.
Apparently their reason was they don't want large active facilities to be
Included in this.
Yeah, the state.
Yeah, the state, the community solar regulations, again, you're using the distribution line, so they limit the size of it so that it's not utility grade. Utility grade solar projects using the distribution lines. Transmission.
The utility scale projects on the transmission lines, they have their own state level permitting and land use review. It takes it out of the hands of the local planning boards.
Right.
So this is different.
It's over 25 kW.
Yeah. 20, yep.
But to answer that question about traffic and stuff, it's the same for all 3 of them.
And I guess what I'm saying, Fred, not to be a pain, but what I'm saying is, should we ask that question 3 times or 1 time? It's just, it's just me. I'm having
It's
difficulty.
gonna be one contract with the construction company. It's gonna be one installation.
3 LLCs, 3 permits with the state.
You feel that one of the particular subdivided properties would have a traffic issue or would that
No.
be impacted?
No, but I'm just wondering if we should ask that question 3 times, is what I'm saying.
Oh, well, this is a general discussion right now.
Okay.
So
Okay,
I'm going to say.
I guess the answer is no.
So you're asking
It's
us
No.
about noise.
Yeah, noise,
Traffic.
wasteful
No.
energy, pollution, et cetera.
No,
Okay, so next question. Does this plan protect the community from inappropriate design and other matters of scenic and aesthetic significance?
yeah, it protects it, yeah.
Does the plan ensure the proposed use will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is proposed?
Well, if we had a comprehensive town plan, that would be a very easy answer. Absent a town plan, I would say yes for this particular one, or I'd say yes for all 3. I'm still, I don't see the problem with simply approving all 3 of these as 3 separate items. If we can get past our own code, which is they can't be within a mile of each other. So I think if we have to, we can address that part first. Then I think the rest of them go away, or at least most of them. Am I right? I don't wanna speak
Which we
for all.
certainly can. It is a finding of this board. And maybe the finding is 3 separate projects, but the mileage.
Or was it the planning board, not the town board, that came up with one?
Well, it is the town board that came up with it, but it's in our code for this board to enforce and implement. But we could make a finding and the result may be the same.
You know, Jamie, I was gonna read that today and I lost the time. What exactly does it say?
I'd have to pull it up
I
again, but I
wanted
have,
to see the exact language.
Yep. no, but we have looked at it before and I have read it and it is waivable,
There's some discretion.
correct? And we'll send it to you.
Rich, do you think that if we can get past the distance issue, we can put the three of them together as one without feeling that we've made some sort of a precedent that we're gonna come back to bite us later?
Well, we've never done a site plan approval for multiple parcels, at least not to my knowledge. So that if we do one site plan for 3 separate parcels, if they go out to construct and find out there's rock, there's this, that, or the other thing, so they can't put some of the panels where they want them, they have to come back with an amended site plan for all 3 parcels. Now, what will that do, since they have 3 ownership interests? Are there gonna be different owners? In other words, are they gonna sell these things off? Are they gonna maintain the ownership with subsidiaries of CVE? I mean, it could get a little dicey as time goes on, if all of a sudden one of these entities is owned by some other company. And now we got to do some type of amendment to the overall site plan. What happens? I don't know.
May I, Jared, that's a very valid question that we can answer.
Yeah, I point out just whether it's 3 lots, 3 projects for Cedar, it's going to be one project because you can't segment these things. So we have to treat it as one project for determination of secret. Yeah, the project contemplates 3 different lots. If the special use permit is, again, I think whether you consider it to be 1 lot or 1 project or 3 projects, I think the impact is the same as I just stated. It's a perfect location for it. If it makes you feel comfortable, again, I believe it's 1 project with 3 different lots to make it similar, as I said in my very first meeting. And any commercial development that you go into large shopping areas, large shopping plazas divided into tax parcels. It is. There are parcels for purposes of HIDA, et cetera. Just go look at I'm sure throughout your town, you have a commercial development that's broken into different tax parcels. That's all that we're asking for in the circumstances that they be treated differently.
If I can, the one question that I actually was interested in is the separate ownership of and different entities of the parcels, right? Correct?
I don't know, but I'm the land use attorney from the corporate, but I do not know how they're going to do that. Person.
Yeah, we're a 12-year-old company with over 450 megawatts in operation. We've never sold off a project. We plan to sell this project off. And yeah, the special purpose vehicles, the shell companies will get made later in the process for financing. They'll be fully owned by CPE. CPE would be responsible for the decommissioning plan, for the maintenance, plowing.
And is that something that we could put in the special use permit?
Yeah. I mean, I for one, I'm not in favor of it being treated separately for reasons related to that. And then it's always going to be one. And then you can't do something on one without it affecting the other. That's probably a benefit.
And for decommissioning.
Right. For decommissioning and everything.
Okay.
It's- I think it's better for us. I heard you, this is just my opinion, is that, and having heard all of this, well, I'm not alive, just the lawyer.
What did you say?
You sound like.
Just trying to help, not supposed to make a decision, that it seems like a better alternative now that especially I've heard how this is going to work and have a better understanding of it. I don't think we would want them to be separate. Would not want someone down the road when long beyond when you and I are here going, this one is just our project. We don't care about the other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that should be something.
And the special
So,
use
well,
permit
yep.
that they won't sell.
And I have been asked to move move forward with the next question, which is, can any adverse impacts, be mitigated by compliance with reasonable conditions? This is one where I think we might want to talk about that host community agreement. I do want to weigh in, and I know that Tim Fertusky, the town board attorney, is looking into these host agreements, and that's something that we will try, that will have to be expedited so that we can make a determination on this. So that is one condition. I don't know if there's anything else.
I think that would be a bare minimum, that this would be contingent upon the town entering into a host community agreement with the developer.
Yeah.
Something that they feel is satisfactory.
What kind of agreement?
It's called a
Host
host community
Host.
agreement. Basically, they pay the town extra money for the town hosting. So, is there any other kind of conditions that you think would need to be put on this? I know, of course, decommissioning, we did that.
that and pulling a building permit within a year,
Mhm.
completing construction within 2 years, standard stuff that we put in.
How about the length of?
What about,
That's still a big one.
what about the 7 year versus 25 years?
Definitely, I'm not in favor of 25. We've gone 15 on others,
We've gone 15,
and I'm uncomfortable with that.
I'm not comfortable going beyond 15.
Yeah, no.
I think we had some language in the last one, we'll look at it, revisit that, about the 15 and then. We had,
We've done some 7-year ones for.
Oh, we
solar.
routinely do is on a 7, on solar?
We've done a couple on 7.
7 was always routine, but
Right,
because
sure.
of the nature of the finances and development, 15 seemed to be more appropriate for solar. And I know they'd like to go as longer, but
I would go a minute longer than 15 years.
I believe that that's what we did for the last one, and we had some language in there, and we'll look at what.
Do you remember what you did with the first source renewables project? on the Northern edge of town. I think 15 years might be a problem for financing because of a 25-year contract with 7 years. Just curious.
We
I
haven't gone longer than
think, I
15.
think we made some findings, I'm gonna have to look at that. Because this came up again with them, about the contracts.
Yeah.
I know we have never done more than 15 years
Okay.
on any solar project.
If it's a problem with financing, do we have an option where we could do a long-term special use permit with a condition in there that it's reviewed every so many years?
I'm gonna look at that, Val. I know that we did have something, some kind of language that was very, was acceptable to the last solar project.
I know there was one that was almost an automatic renewal, and we said no.
Right, but we did come up with a
Yeah,
compromise on it.
okay.
Said it now?
And the last question is, does the project conform with the town's planning goals and objectives? And that would be, actually, this board is basically setting a lot of those objectives as we go along. So, I don't know.
I think it does.
I'm good.
So we'll start working on that.
Okay, so we had a chat on all these topics.
Very important.
Jamie's going to be reducing some things into writing. At our next meeting, we will be voting relative to the 1 or 3. And we will also be voting relative to special use permit and secret.
We Can't do the secret that soon.
Oh, because of the type.
Yes, because of type 1.
Okay,
We really can't make a decision, but we can make some preliminary decisions, certainly the 1 versus 3, we can do.
Carson, could you set up a tour on Sunday? If that works for the rest of the board?
Yeah, potentially. I'm flying to France for a company trip on Saturday, but
Likely story.
we can organize something. Definitely be happy to have you out there.
Jamie, just to
I-
clarify, do you need an email?
I'm not sure I can make some.
Or did we
I won't
discuss
be.
that?
I think I
Maybe we could circulate an email, find the best Sunday,
I think I've heard everyone,
soon,
these couple
the
things.
best day.
Yeah,
Sometimes
it could be a Saturday,
weekday too.
it could be a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. We're on for September 27th.
Alrighty. Board,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
good night.
Moving on. The next item on the agenda is Andrew Day and LaBella Associates. This is for site plan and special use permit for a solar array at 8540 Salt Springs Road. We had previously opened a public hearing, and it is on for today for continuation of the public hearing. The hearing is open, so I would ask the audience present if there is anybody here who wanted to speak relative to this, who has not spoken before or who has new information.
I would hope David Morocco.
Hi, Mr. Morocco. We've heard from you before in writing and in presence.
I say a little bit more.
If it's something new and relevant, yes, sir.
I'll read right from my notes. I'll run right down this thing.
Yes, we are listening, sir.
Thank you. Okay, my name is David Morocco. I'm the land at 8490 Salt Springs Road, approximately 55 acres. It's just below this proposed project. I'd just like to ask this planning board if you are truly satisfied to date with the review of this particular project. I know a lot of questions have been, emails have gone around, and I don't know if you've got any answers, because I don't have any answers or clarification on some of the questions that have been asked by the neighborhood and by the board. So, you know, it's really about how much information have we received that I haven't been able to get my hands on. So I'm just very concerned, and I'm going to run right down this. So view shed, can you screen this project ever, no matter what you do with the buffer? I saw one proposal. I haven't seen anything else. Project's impossible to screen, in my opinion. Our water source, this project, it was answered differently, but this project's over our aquifer. It's my only water source. We have 4 wells downstream to this. One is close as 50 to 60 feet away from set of panels. Very concerned. The decommissioning of and the estimated costs, I don't think anyone really knows what that is. If you have information or answers, I'd love to know what that's going to cost and what the permit fees are to start this project. I've heard numbers in other towns that are far different than the information I've received. I've heard some numbers. And as far as the bonding goes for the decommissioning, I'm told you can't get bonds out as far as 15. Let's use 15. I like that year. So, you know, maybe for first 2 or 3 years. So that would mean it would have to be cash. How much is that? How much is the cash? Who's negotiating this deal for the permit? Taking properties off the tax base for our own town to pay for our infrastructure. Who's going to pay for this? The taxpayers are going to pay. From what I'm hearing, I really don't get it. I don't understand. It's gone from 360 to 58,000. Doesn't sound like a very good deal on property that could be, homes could be built and assessments put on. Property values will fall as much as 25% in this particular neighborhood. In this particular neighborhood of Salt Springs, which I know very well. So assessments will also fall. Result in less tax revenue for the town. What's in it for the town? What is the town getting out of all of this? Besides this deal, these deals I don't really understand that no one has any information on. And again, I don't know who's negotiating these deals. I'd really like to know. My land was listed, I believe, on the application as unusable or abandoned farmland I don't know if you've been up there in the last few weeks, but we baled 5 large bale per acre at 100 acres. So we baled 500 large bale. Large bales are real big and they're wrapped white to truck them out. Normal bales are the bales you feed your horses everybody's familiar with. The yield on that would be more like 5,000 bales of small bale hay. That was just one cut. That's just the head. We got corn up in the corner. We got beans on the top side. This is over 110 acres. This land is very busy. It's being farmed. I farm it. I have a farmer farm it. We're up there. We're all involved, and it's gonna. We hope it stays that way. We really like. I keep going on about it, but so a second cut, of course, would be double that. And most years you get 2 cuts, so the yield is double that. So very important to us who are up there living and trying to feed the animals. In the event that you were even to go to a vote tonight, yes or no, are you satisfied with the answers to the questions that you've asked and that we've asked and the neighbors have asked? I don't know where the answers are. In the event there is a resolution ever drafted or that you were going towards some way that maybe I would want it to go, will the people be able to see that resolution before anything is ever really finalized? Will the public be able to see that? And that's just a question I have because you have to do a resolution.
Well, the public would be able to watch the resolution as it's occurring here before us. We're not doing anything tonight, just to satisfy your question on that. But yes, the public would be able to see the resolution and afterwards they'd be able to get a copy of it with no problem.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you for coming and thank you for expressing your opinion.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wanted to express their opinion?
Go ahead. Louis Morocco, owner 8394 South Springs, that's my father, so I'm not going to be redundant or repetitive, but in prior meetings, we had asked for some further screening plans that we haven't seen. My house, when I live in, is direct plane. This proposal, and I haven't seen anything from original plan. Level and the site, goes up pretty exponentially, slopes up. So you have to have some pretty mature trees to ever screen something. Ultimately, it's a misuse.
Thank you, sir.
People would like to speak.
Okay. Can you tell us who you?
Andrew Day with Source proposed project for solar, and it was asked to provide some further simulations and answer any questions that public hearing. So thank you for just to start. This is the landscape plan. It's an extensive landscape plan that provides screening, across the front of the property, down the side of the screen. The solar array from the street to neighboring properties. We took the links at this plan and created an artist rendering showing what the potential.
Could you talk a little louder?
Oh, sorry. We created an artist rendering using this landscaping plan to show what the site looks like now versus what it will look like with
with screening trees when they're mature. And these are the views that we took in terms of where the locations of the pictures were. I think particularly there was question about what it looks like along Salt Springs Road and also the intersection as well. And so this just gives you a general location of where these photos are taken from, or the general location of the arrays. This was view number one, which shows the from the street looking up towards the fields. And this is where the digital rendering is. And I've emailed a copy of this presentation to be able to share with the board. Here's view number two, which looks up the driveway straight up towards where the solar array is located. This is the screening that's shown. As you can see from the landscape plan, there's significant screening all up along the side of the. Here's view number three, which is a little bit farther down Salt Springs Road, looking across the open field. And there's that's where the screen would be located across the field on the other side of the field. The array. And here's the location from the intersection showing the view once again across that field. And it's very difficult to see the array, so you can see some of it in the distance that goes up the property.
This is from the intersection.
Yes.
That's showing 20-foot tall trackers on that plan there.
Tractors are close to 14.
So I have a question.
Yes.
What's the elevation level from the road to where this proposed site is? What's the change in elevation?
I have
From road to top of the hill,
Yeah,
about
road.
48 feet.
Yeah, it's 50. He answered that once before, 50 feet.
So, yeah, mature
And they
trees.
don't grow around.
One at a time, please.
Sure. Well, I can go back and check with. Sure, but this was based upon the.
The screening on the existing elevator plan, or is there a berm screening about, or is that just on the?
It's
Plan as is right
it's the mature trees from where the proposed elevation is. So I don't.
Mr. Day, I'm not understanding. Maybe I'm a little slow on this one. Is this showing where the mature trees are? Because I
No.
don't see them.
No, this is where the tree, where once the screen was planted and they become mature. That's
Do you have a proposed drawing of what it's going to look like with them in?
This is in terms of the site plan.
Yes.
That's the site where the tree all located up along the side of the array.
Previous slide is.
Yes. You too. Barns are those four.
Before they are.
Yeah.
There is a driveway down to the highway, down to Salt Springs.
He didn't bring anybody with him.
Andrew, I got a question for you. We're looking north in this, are we not?
Yes.
And that says the solar array starts literally right at South Springs Road.
Right.
Yep. So you're going to start your screening right there at South Springs Road, right?
Right.
That doesn't come across in the artist drawing that you're showing us. That looks like it's way up the hill by this time.
Well, I
what I can do is go back to the.
See,
I would say it-
the problem is, there's a lot of, there's a lot of stone there, so when you start the trees, you have to start it small because of the rock. And then after 25 years, they're stone.
There, I've been up on a property. There is no way in the world that those trees, I don't care how tall they are, would ever screen this solar project. Now, it may if you're standing in the road, but if you're across the street on a property or down the road on a property, there is no way in the world, those trees would have to be 50 feet tall. And there's no way they're gonna be 50 feet tall in my lifetime or probably my children's lifetime. So, I mean, you can show these, and I don't know how big you're projecting those trees to be when they're planted. I think the last time,
Plan that there's a mature height of the trees.
but I think, my recollection, it was either 6 feet or 8 feet at the planting.
Yeah,
Was-
that's the plan.
at the
And then, you know, then they grow.
It'll grow, but. Okay, I guess we keep going. I think those trees have to be 50 feet tall to screen it. Because I've been,
Not, yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Day.
Yeah, no, in short, yeah, so what we provided, you know, significant, you know, landscape plan. And according to the landscapers and the arborists and the engineers that provided the plan, you know, it instructed me that we did these trees. So,
I did send this plan out several weeks ago, and I marked on it where I'd like additional. You asked us for this the last time you were here, and I sent this out, and I never got anything back. So I wanted 4 additional places on the roadway to take a look at the view with the trees and what it would look like. I never got anything back. Sure.
Yeah, so well, I can take that, we create these views, and it takes time to create these simulations, and so once we go or get something out in front, so I apologize for not having to move sooner in order to be able to.
Okay.
But we can provide updated screen, you know, visuals and so forth.
Just so you understand, and this doesn't mean we're going to do the same in the future, but in the past, all of our solar arrays are so discreet they can't be seen. We had one exception where 2 houses were impacted, and they were very happy with the screening that we had put in. But our solar arrays are invisible to the normal communities and the neighbors. And it's the type of thing we're looking for. That's the type of thing I'm looking for, at least.
And they're on flat pieces of land. None of them have any type of grade.
Do you want to add anything else?
Any other, you know, that is what that is what it is. I would have to provide additional news.
All right.
That would be helpful for.
Yeah, I have a question on your environmental assessment form. You said that the disturbance is plus or minus 2 acres. So that's, but it's, in light of the last presentation, is that accurate?
Yeah, well, that's with regards to what the permanent disturbance is, and that takes into account, you know, the road that's coming in is a pervious road, so that doesn't go into the calculation. And so I think what was being referred to before was what was inside the fence line. This is actual permanent disturbance as it's calculated.
I guess we want to look at, see if we agree with that, okay? Because if you don't, then we'll take this one as well. Otherwise, it's unlisted, so. Doesn't, that's not, I'm just a lawyer. I'll let him figure that out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Day. If you're okay and you're finished, we're going to have to hear from some other people who are communicating this electronically.
Sure.
Okay. All right, we're sending the first person in and hopefully. All right, Mr. Messinio, if you unmute, you should be able to speak.
Hey, can you hear me?
We queue.
Okay, I'm sorry, the audio's been a problem. I had a lot of trouble hearing Mr. Day. Can you, I submitted some photos earlier that I'm wondering if while I talk, you could bring those up?
Yes.
We see the photos, sir.
Okay, so it's hard for me to see them because I must be in the wrong pane, but let me make the point. This really is a continuation of what I see as the essential issue here. There's many families. There we go. This is looking down on the nearest home. That's the little home that the Morocco's own that they rent to another family. And then, and I do see this. So go to the next picture. And I'm up on top now.
This is not an ideal way to share, so I apologize.
Is it not responding or?
No, it's just.
Those are the bales of hay though. that are
Okay,
out.
so this is a good resemblance. This is only a third of the hay. That's got to be 100 feet long. So that's to Dave's point about how verdant the field is. And look in the background at the view that you have up there. Okay, go to the next one. I'm trying to paint a picture here before I give you some words to mess up the pictures because it's beautiful there. And there should be a couple more pictures. And behind that hedgerow, by the way, are homes. There's families. Donegan's Way is behind that hedgerow. So to my knowledge, nobody has spoken to the Bushnells, the Garofalos, the Harrises, the Moraccos, the Denny's, the Sheridans, the Bayshores, or the 10 families that live in Donegan's Way that will have to look at this. I've planted trees. I live just down the street. I've planted trees with my own hands, 6-foot trees. There's a picture of the one on the left would be Bushnell. The one on the right is Garofalo. Very expensive homes staring right up at this. I've planted 6-foot trees 11 years ago, which are now 14 feet tall. That rock requires those trees to be watered at least once every week or two, depending on the weather conditions, for probably 2 years. Those 6-foot trees are now 16 feet 11 years later. That's not nearly enough to screen the view from these folks' driveway, especially not from the second floor windows where that they're going to look. So now you're going to, it's just totally unfair to those folks and all the others that I named that they should have to stare at this when they were looking at a beautiful field, not to mention everybody that's in the neighborhood that doesn't look at it, that drives by it nearly daily. So there is no effective way to shield this. And I believe these pictures give you a feel for how beautiful it really is out there. I took Rich out there, took him up on top, we drove all around it. And I invite the other board members to get in my truck and do the same thing. But that 13,550 panels will destroy the side of that verdant field, which is producing tremendous amounts of hay, beans, and potentially other crops over the years. So that's my primary point that I'm making here tonight. Additionally, I think they glossed over something. They mentioned that there's 0.6 acres in the environmental report, 0.6 acres of wetlands. And what they're ignoring is immediately adjacent to that is a very multi-acre wetland that is large enough for the Kraken to live in, but somehow that doesn't get put in the report. Also, they reference a report by Lobella that would be provided upon request. I've never seen that report specifically addressing the wetlands. The county resolution requires, it says that the applicant must contact the Corps of Engineers and or the DEC for New York to confirm presence of federal or state wetlands or the 100-foot state wetland buffer on all sites. Has that been done? I have seen no evidence of that in the documentation package that I reviewed.
Allison, can you go back to that picture of the homes? Yes. As Joe said, he took me up there and this picture was taken from his car. So it's roughly 5 feet, probably above grade, up at the top of the hill or close. It wasn't all the way up to the top, but it was close. And my understanding is that we're going to have 9-foot posts that will have panels on top that will move. And I think, you know, maximum height is somewhere like between 20 and 25 feet. And I learned something new today. Telephone poles are 40 feet, 6 feet in the ground, so they're 34 feet. You can see that telephone pole that's in between the two houses. So that's roughly 34 feet above grade. So if you now put something about 15 feet higher in the air and take a picture down, you've got to have 45 foot screen of some sort, whether it's trees or whatever, in order to protect those homes from having to look at this field. It's always been a concern of mine, the screening of it. And after going up there, it's even a bigger concern. And these are just two houses. And these are people that have lived there, have invested money into their homes, and putting this solar field or farm across the street will decrease the value of their properties. And I personally have a problem with doing that to somebody, especially since they've invested, obviously, a good deal of money into their home. So I just don't think you can do
The
it.
planned solar field now is down on that flat below. The solar panels are going on the flat below where you're standing there,
Right where we're standing.
right where you're standing.
Yeah,
on
we're
the hill.
up, Fred, if you look at the plan. You're up roughly in this area up here, looking down at the homes. So you would have a 9-foot post in the ground and then a panel on top of it that would be moving and potentially getting as high as 20 or 25 feet above, well, 20 feet above where we took that picture.
Okay.
So, I mean, I just don't see any way to screen that. And as Joe said earlier, we have been very cautious in the past to try to find places that are somewhat shielded, that are flat. This, I just don't know how you do this one.
Based on my,
Richard's been speaking on your behalf to a degree here. Is there anything further that you wanted to say?
yes, I would. Based on my personal experience with my fir trees, at growth rate of my trees, and those trees are fertilized and carefully watered for the beginning of their life, it would be a 40 to 50 year time span to get up to the heights that would be necessary. And that's if they all lived. You're talking about planting hundreds, if not a few thousand trees. It just, in the lifespan of this project, you're never going to be able to screen it. It just won't happen. And I live there. I planted the trees. I watched them grow. I nurtured them. These guys don't have any concept of what it's like to try, and you have to stake these trees. How are you going to stake trees when you drive a wooden stake into solid limestone? It doesn't work. You can't do it. So that's really the essence of my thoughts. And as I said, when I wrote my article in the Eagle Bulletin, it's really not about solar or global warming. It's about where to place them properly and the fairness to the neighbors that are going to have to stare at this every day of that they live in those homes. It's just totally unfair. The destruction of their property rights, in my opinion. It's a very fundamental American right.
Okay, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us.
Thanks.
Allison?
Yes,
Anyone
we
else?
have one more. You're just going to have to ask for clarification on name.
Good evening, can you hear us?
Well, I've sent several asked to unmute requests. And their name is not properly noted. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go.
We're seeing somebody.
Yes.
Hello?
Joe's wife.
He doesn't want us to. No, he doesn't wanna, he doesn't wanna be on. He's like, cut.
I have no control over that. That's all.
Okay.
All right. He can also use the question and answer to just type a question, which he has been using, so.
Well, let's give him another minute to see if he wants to communicate. Definitely don't want to be seen.
Gadgets.
All right, I can put him back to attendees so that he can participate that way, using the question and answer function if you'd like.
Okay, yes. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, yes, I thought you were doing it. Yes.
Nope, you're in charge, so I was waiting for you.
Okay.
All right, that is all that I have right now.
No questions. And that being the case, I would entertain a motion.
Jamie, it does look like from the drawing that was submitted by the applicant, the parcel area in question is 85.99 acres. And the applicant indicates that the disturbance area is 32.73 acres.
Oh,
And that's right off the.
I was looking at,
Salt Springs. So
because I was looking at the EAF.
Disturbance 32. Yeah, listen, are we done trying?
I mean, it must be a typo, because I am looking at the full EAF, and it says plus or minus 2.
It also says fenced area 26.134 acres.
Okay.
So when it says disturbance area, I would say,
It's a typo.
when they say 32.73, that's what we would. add.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Richard to close the hearing. Second by Valerie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The public hearing is hereby closed. My understanding is we were going to go into some special use conversations.
We may as well go ahead and take a motion to declare this a type 1, Joe, so that I can send. out
Based
notices.
upon the disturbance being excess of 10 acres, I would entertain a motion to declare this type 1 action by Michael Roy. Second by Fred. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Type 1 action. Did you say you wanted to say something?
I always want to say something. I'm in favor of solar. I think that it's something that is going to be part of our future. We're going to live with it. It's going to be in the town of Manlius, but I am very concerned of where we put it. And this is not a site that I think is conducive to it for a few reasons. First and foremost, there's no way that you can block it or never see it. It is going to be, when we were on top of the hill, you could see Oneida Lake, you could see the city of Syracuse. And even with trees down by the roadway, you could be in a boat on Oneida Lake and be able to see that. And I think that's something that this board should consider in the process of approving these things. And there's no way, personally, I can be in favor of this project because you cannot screen it. There's no way to screen it. And that's a big concern to me.
The problem that we're having is we've had no guidelines.
Well,
Well, it's a special permit is what it does.
I know, but about view sheds, it's, that's all, it's kind of in the eyes of the beholder what you want to look at.
and I think we have to use our logic then. I mean, since there isn't strict guidelines for that type of thing, I think we have to step back and say, is this an area that we want to see a solar farm, a solar array? I mean, on the side of a hill, I personally, I don't think that ever makes sense. I don't care what hill it is. And when you add the fact that this is facing north, so in the wintertime, the panels are going to be as high as they can get, I would think, because you got to face south. And they're going to be moving. I don't know how you protect the people that live around that area right now. It's a resident. There's homes there now. They bought their homes in anticipation that they wouldn't have this, and I just can't, in good conscience,
I agree
move
with
this
this.
forward.
I agree with Rich.
In light of the fact that Richard and Ann are both saying that, can I ask for a consensus amongst the panel as to whether how other people feel about that?
I think it's impossible. There's no way in hell you can put that solar array there. My criterion is I put myself in the shoes of the people who own those homes. And, I look out there every day. I know where I live. I sure as hell wouldn't want that in my backyard or my front yard or across the street. And I can't imagine why we would say, okay, to the folks on Salt Springs Road, it's okay for you. If it's not okay for me, it's not okay for me.
Right.
I agree. I couldn't support it. I don't think there's any way you could ever screen that. And I visited that site multiple times now.
I have too.
That's 4.
I would say a few things. First of all, I think there could be a lot worse that could go there. I don't think solar is that good. But with that being said, just looking at some of the screening photos that were shown, and I think there's a question that you were asking before about a difference, the other project, the special permit questions, that it doesn't necessarily fit with the character of that space and the view, and that particular area is a lot about view shed. So I'm very in favor of solar. I just don't feel this is a good spot for it.
It's 5.
That's enough.
That's enough. And candidly, I am a very strong advocate in front of solar. I think solar is definitely needed, but we have always respected the neighbors. We've had a public hearing where we've heard multiple neighbors having problems with this. Candidly, I've got a problem with visually as well. So Mr. Day, what you have here is, we didn't vote on anything. We've had a consensus, and you've got 6 members of a 7-member board saying it's not going anywhere. So it's your choice as to whether we proceed forward. But I think you are getting an idea of what the end result will be, sir.
So do I make the decision now?
Well.
Well, actually, you don't have to do that. We don't want to put you on the spot, sir. What we can do is we can postpone this until a later date, so you can give it some thought. You may have principles that you need to speak to relative to this. I think they may be interested in knowing where the board is heading towards. And then report back to us on the next day or prior to the next day if you choose to. You certainly have a legal right to proceed forward with this, and we would proceed forward with special use hearings and all further discussions if that was your choice. But then at the same time, if you see where the ball is headed, you might be economically more feasible not to. It's your call.
Yeah, no, thank you for consideration.
You want to postpone to the next date?
Yeah, let's.
September 27th will be the next date, and we will await hearing from you as to what your intentions are. Okay, sir?
Can I just ask a question while we're here?
You've always asked questions, Richard.
Well, I know. But if we have a general consensus, and if I were the applicant, I'd rather know sooner rather than later, so I'm not spending additional funds.
I think that's what
I
we
think
did.
that's what we're doing.
That's, I
That's what
think
we're
that's what we've just done.
Okay, okay.
There is, I mean, right now we have a type 1 action declared. I will send the notice. It's not a whole bunch of skin off your teeth, so to speak, and it keeps the process moving, which is appropriate, until we hear otherwise.
And we stand adjourned on this matter until September 27th, unless or until we hear from the applicant prior. Okay, thank you, sir. Next on the agenda, Route 5 Development Corporation. This is a continuation of a public hearing for a site plan relative to Lot 15 and the restaurant being constructed on Town Drive. Hey, I've heard that you have a new presentation. Did you want to do that prior to us continuing our public hearing?
I think it makes sense to do that so that the public knows what we're proposing, and then if they do have comments, they can, add to that based on the new plan. I think that makes sense if you all agree with that.
That's fine. And we apologize for holding you up and keeping you waiting.
It was very interesting. I'm learning too. We're all learning, I think, but good evening. Thank you for entertaining us again. We do have a revised plan which we submitted. And I believe everyone has seen, but I'm not going to go through all the details, but really what we've done here is we had tenants, our restaurant tenants, with some comments and this board with some comments. So we took that into account. We have this revised plan, and what we've done is separate the two restaurants. And what that does in a nutshell is it gets rid of that crossover drive-through traffic that people were feeling queasy about at that corner, so some people. It allowed us to relocate the dumpster, so it's not up in front by Genesee Street. It's tucked in by the back of the building. And it allows a separate drive aisle for a used truck. So I know that was sort of where we started, but so I think it does alleviate some of the site plan issues that we were still talking about at the last meeting. And I'm gonna let Andy walk through in detail, but if you have comments or questions while we're doing it, we're happy to speed it along and just answer the questions as we go.
Sure. Good evening, my name is Andy Hartwick, Bergman, representing the board and the civil engineering project. So on the board behind me, it does show the revision of the site plan showing two separate buildings for restaurant A and restaurant B, as Kate mentioned. We were able to reduce square footage of building by doing that. We went from 7,240 square feet of building down to 6,610 square feet of building. We were able to reduce parking from 70 to 68, we have a couple of spaces, but we have less need for that parking now the building is smaller. We did create two separate, very distinct separate drive-throughs. The restaurant to the south is where the mobile order pickup, not technically a drive-through, but that still enters from the south side of the site, heading east. Pickup on the south side of the building, and then they track out heading north, and then they can take a right out as they get onto the drive lane into the plaza. For the restaurant north of that, the drive-through starts between the two buildings, so they're able to queue up when we show vehicles queued there. They queue all the way around the building and they pick up their order on the north side. There's two, if their order is not quite ready yet, they can pull up into the northern spaces and wait, and employee will come out and bring them their food. And then they can exit out heading west and then north again onto the ring road. And they can turn left or right at that intersection. We did relocate the dumpster pad and enclosure for the restaurant to the south. It used to be in the very southern corner, southeast corner of the site. We're able to tuck it right up against the building on the back side. There's plenty of room now. How do you change?
No.
We submitted a drawing that shows the truck maneuvering through the site. We're just trying to put it up on the screen. It's one of your sheets there. The red truck.
There it is. That's not easy to see though.
So the red is representing the tractor trailer traffic through the site. Restaurants entering. General way we've been entering since day one, from the west entrance, heading south and coming around and parking on the east side in a striped area outside of the driveway. So now the truck is separated very well from the stacking of the vehicles. For the dumpster pad, you can see it's in blue. You see a truck entering that can exit. We also did kind of push the dumpster pad from the restaurant to the north. We pushed that pad a little further north to give us more room for that truck to make sure the trailer swings out of that driveway and is not inside.
You have two dumpster pads now.
Always had two. but
Always had two, okay.
Yeah, this one's now tucked up against the building and is not as visible to Genesee Street as before.
I have one question.
Sure.
Where's this traffic coming from that's exiting?
Yeah, that arrow's going the wrong way. The arrow around there. This one here?
Yeah, this thing, yeah.
No traffic goes that way. Apologize. Everything heads east.
So that needs to be whited out.
That's a mistake.
That's a mistake.
Okay.
I wanted to give you guys this off.
Is that the area you're talking about that's wrong?
It is absolutely there.
So they're all mistakes?
No, just that
Just
one.
going out.
So
Those
where
two-
do they come out to get to there?
Well, I guess they could, yeah.
They can come out
They can
of.
just drive right through.
It's just
there?
this one right here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if
there's
there was like a curb there or something. So I didn't know.
No, there's a two-way drive out that circles. the-
Oh, it probably shows it on that. Oh,
That one arrow is.
Oh, I see it on the drawing. Okay.
Sorry.
So up near the dumpsters, I guess that's the north side of the property. There's a 6-foot wide, looks like a walkway. Is that where they'll be unloading and bringing product into the store?
Correct.
Typically, the trucks that are over there now empty from the back. So, I mean, do you anticipate trucks backing up to that?
No, the trucks would park on the east side, enter from the rear of the truck, and they would have.
And walk up and
Along the
then,
edge of the truck and head over to the.
and where's the loading area for the 2,400 square foot restaurant?
It's the same
It's
area.
the same, the truck stays in the same stationary spot.
Okay,
The door to enter the back of the building is on the northeast corner of the building.
okay.
I
We
had a
didn't
question.
provide a crosswalk there, but
I get it now.
I've got a question relative to the drive-through that's between the two buildings. If someone were to come in the westernmost entrance, what would prohibit them from driving across the parking spaces before that in order to get into that drive-through there?
parked vehicles.
A curb?
Yeah, but if there's no parked vehicles, so my question is, should that also be an entrance to get to there for them to go over there?
It'll.
Just eliminate the either 2 or 4 parked vehicle spots.
I wouldn't recommend that. I think we have circulation to get them over to that space. But by us creating a very small 4 spaces island to the south, wouldn't make a lot of sense. It would take away too much parking for one. We have to have 68. And they're free to circulate around. there'll be a sign at the western entrance and at the middle entrance saying, enter here for the drive-through. So we'll have plenty of directional signage to show them where to go.
It would also interrupt the loop around the parking field. And we had talked about that before and decided not to do that because there's a consistent two-way loop all the way around the parking field that kind of makes sense. And we didn't want to add another intersection to that.
Okay.
It's another kind.
I like this layout a lot better than that, the one building with the cross traffic. I mean, it was a,
Considerably better.
We will tell you that we had a number of people, public comments was that there should be a walkway parallel to and alongside of Genesee Street. And I believe the county's recommendation as well came in recommending a walkway parallel to Genesee. Where is it going to and where is it coming from? It's a good question, but both the public and the county have recommended it. Have you given any thought to whether there should be a walkway?
I'm just want to make sure you're talking about a walkway on Genesee Street?
No, on your property, but immediately
No, but on
adjacent.
Genesee,
Yes.
like the one, yeah. So I was at those planning board meetings and what they were telling me, and I have them here, is that they were, if after this development, for future development, they wanted that somebody look at the internal circulation as well as the sidewalks and sidewalks on Genesee Street and North Burdick Street and all that. I think are a much bigger town issue. They're not a core development issue per se. I mean, I know that there's plenty of money out there for sidewalks and you know, you have the DOT and you have the county and you know, you need their participation, but when you create a sidewalk and it doesn't go anywhere, you create liability too. So, you know, if you're dumping somebody at the end of court property, what happens to them if there isn't a sidewalk to take them any further? We have done, you know, we have brought everybody into the center as best we can through the park, you know, and once you get in the center, there's people don't always like the way we've circulated them, but they do have the ability to walk throughout the center. So we do not feel that this project, you know, internal site plan for the town center makes sense to be held up by a sidewalk along a state road, because we think that's a bigger issue. We think that's a larger town-wide, not town-wide, but town board issue that you would you know, want DOT involved, you would want, because if you just put a sidewalk there, I don't know what kind of liability we're creating for ourselves, where there's nowhere else to go.
and then you get into maintenance and repair, and there is a sidewalk on North Burdick Street in the village. So on the opposite side of the street, it goes up,
Yeah.
but there isn't one on your side of the street.
Okay.
I would be opposed to doing that in the
They
town.
do snow removal in the winter too, don't
Oh,
they? I mean, it's a lot of
yeah,
work.
yeah.
Would you be opposed to entering into some sort of arrangement with the town in the future if the comprehensive plan?
I'm sorry, I know,
I
I
know.
haven't heard a hearing, so.
Sorry, no,
Let me ask
would you be
Mason.
opposed to something, discussions in the future with the town, with the village?
No, we
If
wouldn't
it,
be opposed to
because
that,
I
no.
know walkability is a big issue and, you know, that they're looking at for the comprehensive
Yeah.
plan. And this is a big piece of the town, so, okay.
No, we're not opposed to it. I think it's just, I don't think it makes sense to do it in isolation. I think it makes sense to do it in a comprehensive nature. Now, where Andy is, we have a center up in Webster, and they did, the state and the town worked together and got funding. There is a lot of funding out there for sidewalks. And they are putting in a sidewalk. What we had to give up was right of way. We had to donate the right of way, which we did. And that was, you know, they showed us their plans and we donated it. And the sidewalks are in, yeah. And this was in the last year. So I think there's a way to do it. But you do need sort of a comprehensive look at it with all the agencies involved, because you're at maintenance and plowing and safety and crosswalks, it's just becomes a bigger issue.
Installing them is the easy part.
Right, we'll have to remember to look for
Kate, I want to thank you for coming back with a new set of plans. The old ones weren't bad, but they did have some issues.
We were going in the right direction. It just took us a while,
This
right?
is very nice.
Yeah, this is much
It's gotten better.
So before we continue the public hearing, I am going to open it up to the members of the board if they have questions or they want to ask questions about this new plan.
I like it. I like the plan.
I agree, it's much better than what was in front of us before.
Yeah, I
You
think
did a
less confusing and congested.
Yes, cleaner.
Yeah, you did a good job.
We had some associated regulation changes as well. Similar language. That's consistent throughout the whole center, but introduced a few other materials that highlight the entrances and drive-throughs. Just kind of lighten the building up a little bit. The top elevation is what you would see as you're looking east from McDonald's towards Key Bank. And the bottom one is what you would see from Key Bank looking towards McDonald's, so just to orient you. And then the lower right, the second one from the bottom, is what you would see from East Genesee looking towards Restaurant A.
Right, so number one, flipping it helped. When we were going parallel to Genesee Street, you had a lot of back of house on Genesee Street. Now by turning it, it's better, and it's even, I think, better when you separate them too. So you end up, I think, the visual is improved as well, not just the circulation.
If we eventually approve this, we're not approving the signs.
You want to know.
Just
what
a
they-
You wanna know the areas.
You can scramble. That might work. And then you could circle and figure out the word. A word jumble. It's good. So I know that the public hearing is still open. I don't know if we have other people that want to talk or.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah,
We're gonna find out.
Okay.
Is anyone else here present here to speak relative to this?
The public hearing portion or from the board?
For the public hearing portion. Yes, sir. Okay, if you'd be kind enough to come right up to the podium and identify who you are, and then tell us who you are and where you live.
Hi, my name is Robert Taylor. I live at 102 Fayette Circle, and I am the president of the Fayette Manor Homeowners Association. I spoke at the last public hearing, and I was given some ideas of additional things I can do. One of those was to reach out to the DOT about putting a light or entrance toward our subdivision.
Yes, sir.
Which we were told is not possible because of the proximity to the light going to town center. They said we could not have a light. They did offer to do a study for us, which I said we wanted, but it's gonna be at least a year for them to do it because of the backlog. So it's gonna be at least a year. I did forward all the email to Lisa, which stated all of that, to forward to the board. I'm not sure if anybody read it. Another thing I did was I reached out to the Manlius Police Department on accidents that happened on Genesee Street. On the 7200 block of Genesee Street, which goes from the East Side Dental Specialist to Mott Road from January 1st, 2020 until July 2021, there were 9 accidents reported there. Now, those are accidents where a police report was filed. On the 7100 block, which goes from Draycott Road to just past Shep's Funeral Home for the same time frame, there were 8 accidents. So that's 17 accidents in 19 months. And in those 19 months also includes the time where basically the county was shut down, where there is no unauthorized travel. So if you take out those 2 months that occurred, that's 1 accident a month. That's a lot.
What caused the accidents?
I did not get detailed reports. I asked for as much details as possible, and this is what I was given. But these are all accidents that required police report. So it wasn't like somebody just bumped somebody and they looked at it and said it was okay.
Is there any related to your subdivision?
One happened in my backyard. There was a motorcycle accident. Somebody turned in front of the motorcyclist. The motorcyclist went flying. Their motorcycle ended up in the entrance to our subdivision. I went out there. The guy had burns all down his arms and legs. I got him water. I got him to sit down. I called 911. He was okay. But those are the types of things we see. That stretch of land between the 7100 block and the 7200 block is only 2/3 of a mile. Less than a mile. 17 accidents, 19 months. On August 20th, a gentleman from Maple Downs was walking along Genesee Street after going to town center. He was walking back to Maple Downs. Somebody asked him if he wanted a ride. He ended up, for some reason, climbing over the guardrail just past town center, fell. Somebody got out to help him. He pulled them down, an ambulance was called, and that person ended up being taken to the hospital. That's August 19th. Or that's August 20th. August 19th, the day before that, there was an accident on the corner of Burdick Street and East Genesee Street. That accident involved a car. I know this because I was driving by. There was also a kid on the ground holding his bike. And what I'm guessing is, the person swerved to avoid the kid and hit something else. I didn't see what that was. So there's a lot of traffic, a lot of congestion, and a lot of accidents. These are facts. What happens when you add more traffic? More accidents. That's not what this town needs. The comprehensive planning committee met, and one of the things they talked about was walkability. I believe Mr. Lumia, you're at that meeting. Does anybody feel walking in a place where there's an accident each month is safe? If that's part of the planning committee's goals, what are we saying to them when we increase traffic? I heard some great
You
quotes.
don't know though if the people were coming out of the mall, or if they were just driving by.
Right. You don't know. What you do know is because of the amount of traffic on Genesee Street. And what is a fact is if we add more traffic means more accidents.
Yeah.
Can I ask if anybody lives in a neighborhood where they've seen 17 accidents in 19 months?
I probably have on the Highway 92 in Manlius. Where you can't, I live right on it. Please call.
And see, that's what we don't have is perspective of, is that higher than other areas, lower than other
Yeah,
areas?
I don't know what it means either.
Yeah,
And this is just 2 blocks.
no, I understand that,
And-
but
and-
if you took 2 blocks on 92, do they have more accidents, less accidents, the same number?
I'd be willing to bet less accidents. When I talked to the Manlius Police Department, they said there's more accidents or more calls to that area than anywhere else. But they
I
said
think there's
there's
more traffic on 5.
There probably is. I mean, you have 4 lanes.
I mean, there's a lot on 92, but there's a lot on, I think there's more on 5.
Yeah, because they got 4 lanes as opposed to 92 with 2.
Robert, just out of curiosity, who'd you talk to at the police department?
Jeff
Slater?
Slater, yes.
We understand what you're saying, but then the question is, do we stop development solely to keep traffic from increasing? Whether there's really going to be that much additional traffic or not, that's why we asked for a traffic control study. And we see from that there is an insignificant increase in traffic. We understand what you're saying, and we want to have a safe community. But we need to look that there's correlation that if in fact this particular development is going to unreasonably increase the traffic and cause risk and increased risk that we can measurably see, that's one thing. But just to say we're going to close down and not approve developments and not approve moving forward, because there might be an increase in traffic that we cannot correlate with causing the accidents. That's another.
If you read any traffic analysis, an increase in traffic increases the probability of accidents. That's a fact.
I guarantee that, but that makes sense. But you got to draw a fine line and a balance between what you're doing. Do you stop all further development to not have an increase in traffic? You got to do what you need to do to keep things safe, and we understand that, and we're looking for that. But I'm not hearing a correlation between the accidents you're talking about and the fact that this future development is going to cause it.
So that you're saying it won't cause additional traffic.
The traffic impact study we received indicated no.
The traffic study that you received only indicated between the two sections directly in front of the plaza and did not go any farther.
That's true.
All the traffic that's going to be going from these two restaurants are going to be controlled by the lights that exist already. You know, either down at the corner of Bertie, or I guess there is an interest, there is an interest between this project and the corner down there where the lights are, but
It's a right out, right in. I
It
guess.
says
It's right out, right
right
in,
Yeah,
yeah.
right in, right out.
so I can't see that it's really going to be noticeable, really, and I'm in sympathy with you on the amount of traffic that we have already, and that we're a car-centric society, and we drive every place we go, just about to everything. And until we turn that big problem around, I'm not sure that this one project is going to be noticeable.
Robert, did the police indicate that speeding might be a cause of some of these accidents?
On the motorcycle accident, he said speeding may have been an issue on that.
The reason I ask is because that's at 40 miles zone.
Yeah.
And very few people drive at 40, because I know when I drive at 40,
Yeah.
everybody's going by me.
Right.
If you're trying to get out of Fayette Manor and they're going by you at 50 miles an hour, that can be problematic.
Right.
And
And
people who drive above the speed limit don't really realize how dangerous that is in terms of their ability to react. So you still see them nose to tail at much higher speeds than they should be driving. And perhaps the department, highway department might be amenable to a speed study as well as just volume.
And that is also something that I mentioned about lowering the speed limit. And the DOT said, basically, you can cause more accidents by lowering it. I forwarded you all that email where that was stated. I'm not sure if anybody read it or not, but that was all in that email.
If I could ask a question, what is it that what are you requesting that we do as a board? I guess is my question for you.
Don't make something worse.
So if I understand that,
Until the DOT does their study of all of the traffic, which we have asked them to do.
but most of that is existing traffic.
Not all of it. Everybody knows when you have an issue and you add on to the issue, the issue increases exponentially. And in the study or in the cover letter, it was pointed out, we admit there is an issue, an ongoing issue, but we don't think it'll make it much worse.
And I saw that letter.
Yeah.
And so we as a board, as Joe alluded to earlier, it's kind of a balance. And people have property rights. And we can't say no for the sake of saying no, that you can't build and exercise those rights. So I guess I'm just unclear as to what you want us to say no. That's what you're asking us to do?
Until we can get a better study from the state of how it affects.
But what if there's not a solution to whatever the state study says? They've already told you can't have a traffic light.
Yes.
What other things would make it a better situation?
I'm not an expert on this. That is why I asked for the study.
Okay.
Okay.
I would love to be able to tell you a great solution but I don't have one. All I know is there is a problem. And additional traffic will make that problem worse.
Okay.
I heard a couple of good quotes tonight. You know, here to represent the residents of the town of Manlius. Protect the people around the site. That was a thing about the, you know, around the site, Salt Springs. And it's okay for you, but it wouldn't be okay for me.
Can I ask you, did you ask them about the coordination of the traffic lights between the core property by McDonald's and the next one up there, that the next light that's up the highway? Because you guys could get a good break if they were coordinated really well, you know, where it stopped traffic, you could count on it.
I asked for a study to be done.
I can see that they don't want to put another traffic light that close to it. And that would be, we don't find that out.
Maybe if I say this too as well, because I'm definitely concerned for safety. I'm a safety engineer, like I'm serious concerns for safety. And in this particular case with this particular project and the traffic, I think I would be concerned if this project was creating a new in and out onto Route 5. And so it's not, so some people aren't even gonna come in via Route 5, they'll come in via Burdick or somewhere else in the center. So that's kind of where I'm feeling that the traffic, we were told by the professional study that there wasn't a significant impact. And because we're not creating another exit entry onto Route 5, I just don't see the significant impact for the traffic for this particular development.
One of the things that happens with that light, that first light where the McDonald's is as there's more traffic, there's more people turning on red. You're not supposed to turn on red. But as there's more traffic, more people waiting, the more backing up, less people getting through, the more people are turning right on red. And right, I mean, it's gonna happen. Right, there's only so much room. And like what you said, you know, there's only so much room for something. And adding it is just gonna make it worse.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present here who wanted to speak regarding this project? Allison?
Nothing on mine.
That being the case, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Ann, second by Richard, to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is hereby closed. We have referred everything to county based upon the new drawings. We are expecting to hear from them
Wednesday.
this coming Wednesday. So if it's okay with you, we're gonna put this, Kate, we're gonna put this on the calendar for September. Are we gonna overload September 27th?
Didn't say this tonight.
Will be a repeat.
It could be.
Possibly, but it might be shorter.
Okay, you never know. I heard the first one, yeah.
September 27th, and at that time, we're gonna hear back from the county, get their report. We will then do secra,
Okay.
and I can only imagine we'll be making a determination relative to site plan.
Doug needs to do his final review.
Oh, cheapers, you can't forget Doug. Okay,
Great, we'll be back on the 27th then?
yeah, Doug, is that enough time for you?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, the 27th, Kate.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Kate.
it.
Board members, we've been going for over 2.5 hours. Did anyone need to take a 5-minute refreshment break?
So you're gonna order food.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. If you're all okay and going forward, then if anybody's not, you always just let us know and we will postpone for a few minutes. Number 6 on the agenda, Keplinger Freeman Associates. This is an initial presentation for site plan and subdivision relative to a dentist office of all things. 8195 Casanova Road, Manlius.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah, I can hold it. Oh, we got an hour presentation lined up for that.
That's a no vote.
Is Craig Columbus from Salzman Frisch. We're here to present the National Dental Office project. The project's located at the Millstone Building site. That's at 8195 Casanova Road. We're looking for two actions as part of this project. The first action is a subdivision. We're splitting, the site is 3.2 acres in size. We're looking to split out a 0.65 acre parcel for the dental office. The existing site right now, if you've been to the site, it's a parking lot. There's some vegetation on the north side of the site. Gravel lot towards the rear part portion of where the dental office will go. The site slopes from the east up at the school site down to the northwest corner on Route 92. Existing site access to the subdivided parcel would be off the existing driveway that serves the north side of the building. What's being proposed is a 3,000 square foot dental office. We're proposing 10 parking spaces. One space for 300 is the code for office. Again, access would be off the driveway, and access easement would be prepared between the two properties for the dental office access. We're creating a plateau for the building. The high part of the site, or the high portion of the building on the east side would be about at grade, and we would build a plateau toward 92. So the parking lot's relatively level, and then it would slope from that west side of the building down to 92. We have the retaining wall as well. Stormwater runoff would be handled by a subsurface stormwater system under the parking lot. We're proposing generous amounts of landscaping along the 92 portion of the building. And let's see, waste will be handled inside the building. We don't need a dumpster. And we do have a monument sign proposed at the intersection coming in. So that's the high level overview of the project.
I've got a couple of questions right off.
Right.
It looks to me like the medical building office does not have its own entrance. You have no roadway going in. How are you handling access to that building?
There would be an access easement between the two parcels.
We would need to know what that was.
Sure.
And the size of that, whether that's suitable or not.
Sure.
My next question is, you got
And the written agreement.
We would get that.
You got a 3,000 square foot medical building. And it looks like the parking is probably only adequate for the dentist and the employees. And is this going to be suitable to handle the number of clientele? I'm seeing the number of offices that you get and you're anticipating. It looks like it's inadequate.
A lot of that is just come and go very quick. If you're going to have orthodontics done, you know, it's usually a 15, 20-minute window for folks coming in and out. 10 spaces would be adequate. Speaking with the dentist, Chuck DeCosmo, there's also a pathway up to this upper parking lot, and there will be an informal agreement with the owner from Millstone that they could have their employees park in that upper area to just allow some more
Informal.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. This informal understanding it's not what we want to hear. We want to hear that there's going to be some type of a formal agreement.
Quite frankly, there was a couple challenges that we're trying to overcome. One is utilizing this existing driveway. It would be problematic to have another driveway along there. Anybody that goes up and down there will be able to see. There's also occasional truck traffic making deliveries to the Millstone building. And we wanted to accommodate that occasional truck traffic. So what that did is really throttle down what we have available for parking width. And as we go back, we're coming up against a natural hedge, which screens this area to the rear. The desire was to keep the existing hedgerow, so to speak, and allow parking in front of it for the clientele.
I understand all that, but the fact is you still need more parking than the 10 spaces. And there's got to be some kind of a formal agreement allowing at least the employees to be able to park somewhere else, because a 3,000 square foot dental office, you're probably going to have 10 employees.
No, I can't speak to the doc, but typically there's a few aides, one doctor and office staff. So maybe
Dental
5.
assistants, dental hygienists.
No, as I understand, it's mostly orthodontics. It's not a traditional dental office.
I understand, but you're still going to have hygienists and assistants.
You have to bring a lot of fill in there. Yeah.
What is the
site
required?
slope.
Yeah.
Doug, do you know the required parking?
I know my daughter does not orthodontist office, like everything is set and stacked right on.
One space per 300 per office.
That's what our concern is. It's not the large building, it's a two-story building. So we'd be concerned about the parking for that building.
Yeah, I had conversations with Jeff Miller. He would be here tonight, except he's traveling and he's coming back from out west. He wasn't able to make this meeting. He
Jeff
will
has
be-
called me, we did
Yeah.
talk about that, the parking would be an issue.
Yeah,
Some
when he
kind of-
put in the parking lot that we're going to be taking away, that was additional parking. He never utilizes it fully. So he feels that the parking that will remain and the additional parking above would be adequate for his needs. And I did a quick calculation. And it appears that we will have enough parking for the existing building.
So the existing, based on a 2-story building, how many square feet?
The existing building per the county database is 25,134 square feet, but most of that is warehouse. The actual breakdown, I did an area calculation, and the office, total office, this includes gross area, is 14,572 square feet, and the storage portion is 10,758 square feet.
So how many parking spaces are necessary?
I
for that building?
calculated you would need 49 spaces for the office function, which is more than adequate from what he actually has in terms of actual employees. He
Okay.
doesn't have a lot of in and out traffic.
Okay.
And then for the warehouse, I think it's 2 spaces per person that's dedicated to the warehouse, so that would be like 4.
So
we're
and how
really
many,
talking,
and how many parking spaces would be on that parcel?
worst case, I calculated 54. Per
So-
code, but in actuality, it would be much less.
So that creates a real problem then, because they can't give away any parking spaces if they don't have enough for their own building.
We're showing the striping along here that will allow some additional parking within the existing asphalt area. There's an area adjacent to where this driveway is, it's unstriped. So I kind of calculated it would be just enough with additional parking in this gravel area above to meet the needs he has already.
I'm not sure I followed the whole thing, but
Yeah.
I think it's under parked, and I guess Doug, that's something that you'll have to follow up on.
Yeah, just counted here, it looks like you got 41 spots at the Millstone building.
And per code, I think I heard 53 is what's necessary for the Millstone building.
Yeah, this area to the rear and to the side is unstriped. It's essentially gravel.
Right, that's something that,
What's the elevation between the upper part where you park
Yeah.
and your own
Well,
part?
and
the
this
regular-
upper lot-
760
They can
here.
use, I have no problem with offsite parking.
765.
Right, but we need to.
See, we, I want to see
Between here
these.
and the office
Yeah.
building.
So it's actually. used
4 or 5 feet.
Yes.
So maybe that's it.
I don't have a problem with your offsite parking, but it needs to be delineated and I would think at their minimum striped, so that.
Let's
But if it's,
gravel.
then it needs to be.
Striped
Your
gravel.
parking's alongside the building, it's gonna be paved, but there's-
Oh, yes, all that would be paved and would be, handicap space as well.
Can they, what do you call it?
Maneuver.
No, can they put blacktop in the back? Yes.
We could propose that, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Actually, that would fix several of the issues that came up tonight.
Same thing, Wednesday.
So it sounds like we need to formalize the parking between the 2 properties
Right.
and then figure out the exact required parking.
And how much are you actually buying?
0.65 acres.
Yeah.
6.5?
No, 6.65. So about 2/3 of an acre.
Wow, small.
is there a reason that you wouldn't include some of that, what's gravel now, to be paved later in the back to this this lot? So that
Other than the
you can get
discussion.
adequate parking.
Yeah, other than the informal discussion before we even got involved between the owner and the dentist, that they wanted to try to keep that hedgerow and put everything in front of it. So in this case, maybe we can retain the hedgerow, provide access through it and staff parking above. That might solve the issues that we're encountering tonight.
Yeah.
It's a small parcel.
For a small building.
Do you want to see the building?
Oh, yeah.
That would be fine.
This is a computer rendering of what the building would look like with the topography in place. So here you can kind of see retaining wall in front, what the building would look like. This is based on building down on Genesee Street over where your airport comes in. We did an office building for a law office. And the look is taken from that. In this case, it's an attractive one-story building. And I think it will fit the site pretty well. So that's essentially what it will look like. What we are proposing, since it does sit back off the road, instead of fiber cement siding, they would like to go with a high-end vinyl siding. That's the only substitution from the material palette that we used.
What's the address of the
Pinsky
one?
Law.
What's the address of the other one you built?
Pinsky Law.
Jamesville, at the intersection of Jamesville Road and East Genesee Street.
Next to the synagogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Across from Carvel and the pizza place.
It's right there on Genesee Street.
Mario and Salvo's.
Yeah. it used to
Mario
be the-
Salvas?
Yeah, Mario and Salvo's Pizza.
Oh, yeah, I know where that is.
It used to be Dr. Miller's office
Yeah.
that was removed
Oh,
for
okay.
this new building. So that gives you kind of a sense of the look and feel. So as this develops, I don't think if there's any objections, we'll maintain this look. The entrance will be off to the side, adjacent to the parking lot. You can see it here. Handicap parking on the side, entrance at this point.
How far are you in the road? It's a busy road.
Setback was, I believe, equal to Millstone Building.
Yeah, we're probably 45 to 50 feet off the pavement edge.
This
Back
is-
quite a ways.
This is a 30-foot setback line, and we'll be on that. So, yeah,
And then we have a little bit more to the pavement.
right.
Is that to the center of the road or
No, just to the edge of the pavement.
edge of the pavement?
All other setbacks meet code.
Oh, we need, yes,
Oh,
It's 60.
no variances are required.
I haven't seen the SWIP yet.
No, we're, this is the.
Too
initial-
premature.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're.
Overall concept, we want to make sure we're on the right track.
I think it's a nice looking building. And nice transition to the village.
And I think parking is the main issue that I can think of.
So far,
Yeah.
so far parking is a real issue.
Yeah, I think we can overcome that.
Yeah, we'll work through it.
I like the concept. I think the use would be terrific.
Is there anything we need to do tonight? We need to be lead agency and all that good stuff?
No, because it's not, it doesn't meet a threshold. It's an unlisted action.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Will we have a public hearing actually?
You will.
Yes.
Yes, yes. We're way premature for that.
Right.
A couple things, maybe, right, we still do a lighting plan. Or something before that.
You'd be kind enough to just let me know if county got a referral.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll
Mr.
second
Chairman.
Fred's motion.
I've been meeting with Fred.
Fred made a motion, second by Richard. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.